Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Madhava ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. This morning we are reading from Srimad-Bhāgavatam, Canto chapter 18, verse 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nānudveṣṭi kalim samrāṭ. Sāraṅga iva sāra-bhuk. Kuśalāni siddhyanti. Netarāṇi kṛtāni yat. Nānudveṣṭi kalim samrāṭ. Sāraṅga iva sāra-bhuk. Kuśalāni siddhyanti. Netarāṇi kṛtāni yat. Mataji. Word by word. Na, never. Anudveṣṭi, envious. Kalim, unto the personality of Kali. Samrāṭ, the emperor. Sāram-ga, a realist like the beast. Eva, like. Sāra-bhuk, one who accepts the substance. Kuśalāni, auspicious objects. Ashu, immediately. Siddhyanti, become successful. Na, never. Itarāṇi, which are inauspicious. Kṛtāni, being performed. Yat, as much as. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was a realist, like the bees, who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. Purport. The age of Kali is called the fallen age. In this fallen age, because the living beings are in the awkward position, the Supreme Lord has given some special facilities to them. So by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act until the act is actually performed. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of the act. On the contrary, a living being in this age is awarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking of them. Mahārāja Parīkṣit, being the most learned and experienced king by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality of Kali, because the king did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. The king protected his subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali, and at the same time he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allotting him some particular places. At the end of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, there is a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus Mahārāja Parīkṣit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy name, and thus he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. It is for this advantage only that great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. In the Vedas also it is said that by discourse on Lord Kṛṣṇa's activities, one can get rid of all the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is also said that by recitation of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali, and Mahārāja Parīkṣit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of the age of Kali, true to his Vaishnava cult. Om Ajnānatimirandasya Gyananjanāśalākaya Chakṣūramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dheena Bandho Jagarbhate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangir Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gorat Vishye Namaha Panchadattvatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupaktam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Ghora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So after hearing many bad things about Kali, finally we hear something good that nullifies all previous bad things that were mentioned. Actually, in the 12th canto, Shukdev Goswami gives much a longer list of how dangerous and inauspicious the age of Kali is. And I would like to go through just a few of these descriptions that we can understand how degraded and fearful age we are living in. In the age of Kali, people are increasingly irreligious. 1/4 of the Dharma is supposed to be left. That's truthfulness. But where is the truthfulness today? Can you find it very much? You just switch on the TV or read the newspapers and you find the truth. Not much is left. So in this age, people tend to be greedy, ill-behaved, merciless. They fight with one another without good reason. They are unfortunate and obsessed with material desires. And it's said that most of the people almost all are Shudras and barbarians. So what is the problem in this age? It's character of people, people's behavior, people's conditioning, not something else. It's not that climate change is a problem now. Now they're raising a big deal about the climate change and how everybody should decrease their carbon emissions and this and that, but this is just a consequence. The cause of it is degraded character of people living in this age. And this character is influenced by the gunas. So in the Satya Yuga, people are mostly predominantly influenced by the Sattva guna. Mind, intelligence, senses are solidly fixed in the mode of goodness. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And people find the pleasure in the knowledge and austerity. And then in Treta Yuga, that sattva starts to decline and the rajas or passion becomes dominant. The conditioned souls in Treta Yuga, they are still devoted to their duties. They are very dutiful, but they have ulterior motives and seek personal prestige. So this is the influence of rajas. And then in Dvapara, it's further degraded, and we have rajas mixed with the tamas. Greed, dissatisfaction, false pride, hypocrisy, and envy are found there. And finally, in Kali Yuga, we have tamaguna, or mode of ignorance, predominant. Cheating, lying, sloth, sleepiness, violence, depression, lamentation, bewilderment, fear, and poverty. These are the qualities that are predominant. And as the result, people of Kali Yuga are short-sighted, unfortunate, gluttonous, lustful, and poverty-stricken. And Shukadeva Goswami, he goes into detail to describe different categories of people, how they have been degraded during the age of Kali. For example, this is a little funny. For women, he lists the women becoming unchaste will freely wander from one man to another. They'll become much smaller in size. I remember that when Lord Balaram, he married Revati, because she was from Treta Yuga, she was much taller, so he had to make her smaller using his plow. So not only women, but all men were much taller in previous ages, and they decrease in size as the yugas progress. So the women will become much smaller in size, they will eat too much, have more children that they can properly take care of, and lose all shyness. They'll speak harshly and will exhibit qualities of thievery, deceit, and unrestrained audacity. But of course, it's not only women, men also. So for men, he says, in Kali Yuga, men will be wretched and controlled by women. They'll reject their fathers, brothers, and other relatives, and will instead associate with the sisters and brothers of their wives. And then he speaks about the cities and governments, basically the ruling class, kshatriyas. Cities will be dominated by thieves. Just recently I read somewhere in the news that in Ecuador, one Central American state, the government is so helpless in front of the gangs and criminals who are taking over the country, and they are seeking help from outside, but they cannot manage the country because the gangs are all over and they are ruling. This is the present situation. So Vedas in Kali Yuga will be contaminated by speculative interpretations of atheists, and political leaders will virtually consume the citizens. You can judge for yourself how much political leaders are nowadays consuming the citizens. And they do. And religious leaders and brahmanas, so-called priests and intellectuals, will be devotees of their bellies and genitals. Vaishyas or businessmen, they'll engage in petty commerce and earn money by cheating, and so on and so forth. All degraded influences. Hatred. People will develop hatred for each other, even for a few coins. Brother will kill brother for nothing. 4 ashramas, they will be all topsy-turvy. Brahmacharis will fall to execute their vows and become unclean. Householders will become beggars. Vanaprasthas will live in the villages, and sannyasis will become greedy for wealth. And all this is a result of what? A result of disturbed minds. People's minds will be always agitated. They'll become emaciated by famine and taxation, and always be disturbed by fear of drought. They will lack adequate clothing, food, and drink, and will be unable to properly rest, have sex, or bathe themselves, and will have no ornaments to decorate their bodies. In fact, the people of Kali Yuga will gradually come to appear like ghostly, haunted creatures. And now in the news we hear about the food shortages upcoming. So maybe in the future, very soon, this is going to come to pass. People have no clothes, no food to eat, and it's happening. Starvation is happening. Maybe not here, but in some countries, in some continents like in Africa, it's happening. So we are living in very dangerous times, and it's like a forest fire. We are all burning in this forest fire, and we definitely need somebody else to save us. We need some saving grace, and luckily, unfortunately, there is a saving grace, and Mahārāja Parīkṣit, he is giving at the end of description of all Kali Yuga's bad qualities. He is saying, Kalari dosha nide rajan, astheko mahat guna, kirtanat eva Kṛṣṇasya mukta sāṅga param rajet. He says to Mahārāja Parīkṣit, my dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So all these innumerable faults of age of Kali can be nullified by just this one brilliant quality. And this is that just by the chanting of Mahamantra, one can go back to Godhead and destroy all contamination of this age. So knowing how it is difficult for all the people in Kali Yuga, all merciful Lord, in his form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he inaugurated this Sankirtan movement, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And in this way, he made it accessible to all of us. And through his devotees, like Srila Prabhupada, he spread the chanting of this holy name all over the world, outside of India also. So we are very indebted to both Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for this opportunity to overcome all the misery of the age of Kali. But still, we need to take up this opportunity, this chance that is given to us. Like when you are in the building that is on a fire, still you need to jump out where the firefighters are waiting with the net to catch you. So the Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sings in Udilo Aruna how the Lord Chaitanya is giving us all opportunity. He says, Tomare loite ame hoinu avatar, ame bina bandhuar ke ache tomar. I have descended just to save you. Except for me, who is your friend? Ene chaushadi maya nashi baru lagi harinama mahamantra lao tumi magi. I have brought this medicine to eradicate the disease of illusion. Now pray for this Hare Krishna Mahamantra and take it. So we have to pray for it and take it. It's given, but we have to take it. Like medicine, if doctor prescribes a medicine and you don't take it, what is the use of the prescription? So how Lord inaugurated the chanting of this holy name to save all conditioned souls of age of Kali? If you remember, when he started performing his Sankirtan pastimes, in the beginning it was in Srila Pandit's house. Kirtan was going on behind the closed doors because the Lord, he didn't want envious atheists to come and disturb the Kirtan. But pious people who were religious and pious, they were bereft of seeing the Lord's Kirtan. And they lamented, they were condemning the atheists and declared that the Lord performed Kirtan behind closed doors because of these atheists. And as the result, pious people were also suffering. So that's why they were waiting outside the Srila Pandit's house when the Lord was coming out with the different offerings, with the yogurt, with the bananas, with the ghee, with the milk. And they would offer it to the Lord when they would see him, all these pious inhabitants of Navadvip. They would offer obeisance to the Lord, and Lord Chaitanya, he would bless them. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, he describes in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Prabhu bole, Krishna bhakti hoga sabhar, Krishna nama guna hoi, na bole hoar. The Lord said to them, may you all attain devotional service to Krishna. Do not speak about anything other than the names and qualities of Krishna. Then the Lord would chant in front of them, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then he would tell them, this is the Mahamantra. All of you go and chant this mantra according to a prescribed number. Nirbandha, there was a prescribed number, the rules how to chant the mantra, prescribed number of times. And then he would also tell them, Iha hoite sarva siddhi, hoibe sabar, sarva khana bolo, ite viti nahi ar. By doing so, everyone will attain perfection. Always chant, there is no other prescription. 5 or 10 of you can sit together in the house and perform kirtan by clapping your hands. And you should also chant Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So the Lord would tell them, these are my instructions on how to perform Sankirtan. Go home and chant together with your wife, father, sons, and other family members. So these fortunate pious residents of Navadvip, having received the mantra from the mouth of Lord, they were all very jubilant. They would offer obeisances, and then they would return to their homes. And in evenings, they would gather in their houses and perform kirtan, clapping with their hands. And also they had mridangas, karatas, and conchas that were usually used during the Durga Puja, so they also used these instruments. And in this way, they all became liberated from all the influence of the age of Kali. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who is the Lord's eternal associates, who witnessed the Lord Chaitanya's Puri pastimes, he prays to the Lord in his Chaitanya Ashtaka or Satyasunu Ashtaka, which is found in a collection of prayers called Stavavali. He says, Nijatve Godyan Jagati Parigrihya Prabhur Iman. So the son of Mother Shachi, who accepted the people of Bengal as his own in this world, This is interesting. Lord Chaitanya, he accepted all Bengalis as his own because he was born in the land of Bengal. That time was East and West Bengal all together. So he accepted them as their own. So he had a special affection for Bengali people. And then Raghunath Das Goswami, he continues in Chaitanya Ashtaka. Hare Krishnet yevam ganana vidhina kirtayatabo iti prayam shiksham charana madhupebhya paridishan. And who taught them, just like a father, to chant a prescribed number of the Hare Krishna mantra according to the rules. He told the residents, the Lord taught the residents of Bengal how to chant Mahamantra on japa with prescribed number of rounds and also in kirtan. Shachi sonu kime nayana saranim yasyati punaha. When will son of Mother Shachi cross the paths of my eyes again? So Lord's eternal associates, they all, or most of them, appeared in Bengal. And these devotees from Bengal, every year they came to see the Lord in Puri. And when they came, the Lord was floating in ecstasy. He was very happy. He would glorify each and one of them and garland them and embrace them. And they would all then perform kirtan and everybody would just drown in ecstasy. So 4 months of the rain season, Chaturmasya, he spent with his associates that came from Bengal. And they all performed different pastimes, going to the temple of Lord Jagannath, performing Ratha Yatra and other festivals. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he further prays in Chaitanya Ashtaka. He says, Pura pasya nilachala patim uru prema nivahai kshara netram bobhi snapita nija dirgo jvalatano sadatishtan deshe pranay garuda stamba charame Shachi sonu kime nayana saranim yasyati punaha. When will I see the son of Mother Shachi, who showered his own tall and brilliant body, Dirgojvalatano, with his insensately tickling tears of great love, while seeing before him the Lord of Nilachala Jagannath, as he stood behind his beloved pillar of Garuda again. So the Lord, he was standing inside of the Jagannath Mandir, behind the Garuda pillar, which was his standing place. And the tears flow incessantly from his eyes because he was relishing the special ecstasies there. We know that in Puri, Lord lived in Gambhira, and in that Gambhira Lila, he was mainly relishing the separation of Srimati Radharani that she felt when Sri Krishna went to Mathura. In Krishna's Kaviraj, he writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Udava darshane yoiche radhara vilap, krame krame hoilo prabhura se unmada vilap. The Lord madly lamented like Sri Radha when she saw Uddhava, who came to bring message from Krishna to the gopis, and he gradually went mad in this lamentation. It was a transcendental madness of separation that Lord Chaitanya was experiencing, and it was feelings that were felt by Srimati Radharani and other gopis. Radhikara bhave sada prabhur abhiman se bhave aphanake hoy radha gyan. So the Lord always identified himself with the Shri Radha, and he was always immersed in her mood. So this Shri Radha's Vipralambaras was the Lord's Taibhava, his permanent mellow in the Gambhira. It was also in the mood of Shri Radha that the Lord was having a darshan, beholding Lord Jagannath in Jagannath Mandir. And the ocean of his heart was completely stirred. So whenever the Lord saw Lord Jagannath with Balaram and Subhadra in the temple, he was thinking, oh, I came to Kurukshetra. My life now has become a success, for I have seen the lotus-eyed Krishna. This vision has suited my body, my mind, and senses. So these were the Lord's thoughts when he was beholding Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. And tears were sensibly flowing from his ears, where he was standing next to the Garuda pillar. And there was a low canal, a trench, and that canal was completely filled with the Lord's tears. So similarly, when Srimati Radharani came with all the Vrajavasis and other gopis at Kurukshetra on the occasion of solar eclipse to meet Sri Krishna, she was similarly weeping and thinking to herself, Vrindavana Govardhan, Yamuna Pulinavan, Se Kunje Rasadi Kalila. So Vrindavan, Govardhan, the forest on the bank of Yamuna, and the kunjas where we danced, the rasa dance, and performed other pastimes. Se Vraja Vrajajana, Pitta Mata, Bandhugana, this Vraja, the people of Vraja, your father, your mother, and your friends. Bodho Chitra Kemone Pasarila. How amazing, Bodho Chitra. How did you forget them? How could you forget them? Tomara ye anya vesh, anya sāraṅga, anya desh. Now you dress differently. You have other friends and you live elsewhere. Vraja jane khabu, nahi bhai. But you never bother about the people of Vraja. Vraja bhumi, charite nare. They can't leave Vraja bhumi like you. Tomara na dekhile more, Vraja janera ki hobe upay. And when they do not see you, they will die. What shall they do now? So these were the Radharani's words on Kurukshetra when she met Krishna. So sometimes Lord Chaitanya in Puri, he would dream that he met Krishna personally in the Rasa Lila, and then when he would wake up, he would go to the temple to see Lord Jagannath, and he was in topmost emotion, and in that state he would just see Murali Vadan, Krishna holding his flute without Balabhadra and Subhadra. And in this way his long separation was terminated, and he would enter in the extensive states of union or sāra-bhuk, and his chest was completely drenched with the tears. So he was thinking to himself, as described by Krishnadas Kaviraj, tonight I saw the moon-like face of my beloved. I consider my life and my youth successful, and all of the 10 directions have become free from malice and strife. Today, I could consider my home to be a home and my body to be a body. In other words, finally, after seeing and meeting Krishna Kurukshetra, she got alive again. But at that moment, when Lord Chaitanya was absorbed in this ecstasy, some Oriya woman, because there was a big crowd in the temple and everybody wanted to see Lord Jagannath, and there was not enough space. So this Oriya woman, she climbed on Lord's shoulders. She stepped over Lord's shoulders and was holding her the pillar just to observe the Lord Jagannath. Of course, Lord's personal servant Govinda immediately, he hastily took her down and chastised her, but Lord was not happy with that. He actually praised the fortune of that woman, how eager she is to see the Lord Jagannath. But his ecstatic absorption mood was broken. And then again he would see Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, and then he would wonder, oh, how come that I'm in the Kurukshetra now? Previously he was thinking he's in Vrindavan, he saw only Krishna with a flute, but now he was seeing the Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, so he was at Kurukshetra again. So in this way, the Lord's ecstasy and transcendental pain were alternating, succeeding each other like a light and shade, like look at strips of light and shade. So his ecstasy of union and pain of separation were just succeeding each other. But these were on the normal days. But on the Ratha day, it was different. Only ecstasy existed because Lord was taking Krishna back to Vrindavan. The residents of Vraja, headed by Srimati Radharani, they were taking Krishna back to Vrindavan, and their ecstasy knew no limit. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing during the Ratha Yatra in front of the Lord Jagannath, and Sāra-bhuk Damodar, he was singing. He was singing one particular song, knowing the Lord's mind and feelings. he would sing Seta Parana Nata Paino Yahalagi Madane Dahane Juri Genu. Now I have gained the Lord of my life, in the absence of whom I was being burned by Cupid and was withering away. So while Swarup was singing this, Lord was rhythmically dancing. And then the Lord will respond by singing some different shlokas. And what he was singing actually came from Kavya Prakash, which is a treatise of Sanskrit poetics. And it was a mundane poetry, basically, describing the love of a boy and a girl. So Lord was singing, Ya Kumara Hara Saeva Hivaras Taeva Chaitra Kshapas. The very personality who stole my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlight nights in the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet still my mind is not happy here. I'm eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. So nobody knew why Lord is singing this mundane love song. Hardly anybody. Of course, Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Roy, they knew. And also, one more person knew. It was Srila Rupa Goswami. One day after the Ratha Yatra, Lord went to Rupa Goswami's hut where he stayed with Haridas Thakur. And Rupa Goswami was not there. But Lord found a palm leaf on the top of his roof. He took it and he read the verse, and he was completely struck with wonder. The verse was explaining this song that Lord was singing during the Ratha Yatra. The verse said, Tataham sarada tat idam ubayos sangan sukham. I am the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant. Tatapyanta kelan madura murali panchamajushe manome kalindi pulina vipinayas prihayati. But I would still like to go to the bank of Yamuna beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing the fifth note within the forest of Vrindavan. So this is a parallel verse that Rupa Goswami composed to explain the Lord's feelings, which were Srimati Radharani's feelings. Basically, she was there at Kurukshetra, but she could not enjoy Krishna's association. So in this way, Lord Chaitanya, he would look and speak to Lord Jagannath during the Ratha Yatra. You're the same Krishna, and I'm same Radharani. We are meeting again in the same way as we met at the beginning of our lives, because it was 100 years ago, before Kurukshetra, that Lord was in Vrindavan performing his pastimes. So Lord Chaitanya was further speaking, although we are both the same, my mind is still attracted to Vrindavan Dham. I wish that you will please appear with your lotus feet in Vrindavan. So what is the problem with Kurukshetra? In Kurukshetra there are crowds of people, elephants and horses, and also the rattling of chariots. But in Vrindavan there are flower gardens, and the bees humming and chirping of the birds can be heard. Here in the Kurukshetra you are dressed as a royal prince, accompanied by great warriors, but in Vrindavan you appeared just like an ordinary cowherd boy, accompanied only by your beautiful fruit. Here there is not even a drop of the ocean of transcendental happiness that I enjoyed with you in Vrindavan. I therefore request you to come to Vrindavan to enjoy pastimes with me. If you do so, my ambition will be fulfilled. So love of Srimati Radharani, love of all residents of Vrindavan, all Vrijavasis, needs Vrindavan to be properly expressed and to be nourished and to grow. It just doesn't fit into the Aishwarya of Dwaraka and doesn't fit at Kurukshetra also. It cannot grow, it cannot be nourished there. That's why the residents of Vrindavan, they all want Krishna back to Vrindavan. And this is the meaning of Ratha Yatra festival, taking Krishna back to Vrindavan. So these are all very, very high topics, and they are mostly above our heads of most of us. So I was thinking about the parallel, how can we relate to this. Love of Vrijavasis needs Vrindavan. Similarly, our bhakti, our devotional service needs a favorable environment to grow. The other day I was picking some tulsi flowers next to my building. There are some tulsi plants there. And I was noticing for quite some time that somehow these tulsis were appearing to be drying and dying. And I was thinking, what's wrong with them? And then after some days, I realized they were completely overgrown by some wild creeper that is going up and around them and completely covered them. So tulsi were not receiving any sunlight. And when I realized that, of course, I uprooted these weeds and the tulsi start growing again. But this is just to illustrate that for devotional service, for bhakti to grow, proper environment with proper conditions is required. If we allow our devotional service to become overgrown by things that are unfavorable for bhakti, like material desires, it will completely extinguish and stunt our bhakti. Just yesterday, I noticed a man on the road running, jogging, with a mask covering his nose and mouth completely. I guess he was reading some news how the COVID cases are coming again, but he doesn't realize that if you run and exercise with the mask on, you are breathing in your carbon dioxide that you are breathing out, and you're basically suffocating yourself. So similarly, if we perform devotional service, but we nourish and cultivate our material desires, these material desires, they will stunt our devotional service. They will stunt our bhakti. And it can go for quite some time completely unnoticed. Like I didn't notice that creeper, that weed growing over the tulsi. I was thinking, why is tulsi dying? So similarly, desires can creep in. And only years after I noticed that you're completely out of the track. You're gone in a completely another direction, and it might be late. So we have to be very careful with our desires, because the pure bhakti is defined as anya abhilashita shunam, anya abhilash. We are not supposed to have these other desires as our main aspiration or goal of life. Of course, we might have in a certain circumstances some other desires, but these are not desires that are completely overtaking us. Like when somebody is in danger, of course he desires to be saved. I mean, somebody is hungry, he wants to eat. But once the danger or the hunger is gone, the desire is also gone. So the pure devotional service is characterized by the characteristic that your main aspiration is attaining love for Krishna. And then all these other small desires, they might be there, but they come and go. But they're insignificant. They don't overtake your mind. But if by some chance some of these external desires become so prominent and your mind becomes absorbed in it, then it will damage your devotional service. It will damage your bhakti. So that's why we need to know what is favorable and healthy. So material desires and aspirations are definitely not. And we should be careful about it. So we should give our bhakti latha proper environment to grow. Like residents of Vrindavan, they want Krishna back to Vrindavan, where their love for him can be properly expressed and grow. Okay, I'll stop here if you have any comments or questions. Yes, Prabhu, do we have a mic maybe?
Thank you for the class. Prabhuji, you Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when Srila Prabhupada met him for the first time. So he said, Prabhupada said that we have to be independent, India should be independent, otherwise nobody will listen. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told him that many kings will come and go, many governments will come and go, but this bhakti should start, it should be spread. So that urgency we can see. Now in case of Prabhupada also, so in Prabhupada, while at his deathbed he was translating the Bhagavatam, we can see that that urgency is there. So now after hearing the descriptions of Kali Yuga, why is it that I still don't develop that urgency? Like what can we do that we develop that urgency for this thing, bhakti?
Why don't we feel an urgency to leave everything and surrender to Krishna? Because we haven't experienced the dangers of this age that we live in. And for some people, for rare people, might be enough just to hear. And this is first class intelligence. You just hear and it's like you experience it. But for most of people, first they need to experience. They need to get some knocks, hard knocks. And then when they're in pain, when they're suffering, they start to feel urgency. And that's why we see that devotees also go through hard times. They get sick, they get hurt in accidents and so many things. But it's all arranged by the Lord's supreme will and through His energy for the benefit of that soul, of the devotee, in order to further his desire to surrender. But it's more recommended that just by hearing we develop this urgency. So that's why we should read Bhagavatam, and we can also just look out of the window and see how difficult for some people it is, and then learn through their example, through their suffering. If we don't learn to their suffering, we'll also have to suffer. Somehow or other, we need to develop that urgency and to surrender and to give up everything else. There is no other choice. If we don't have the desire, we cannot save ourselves. Okay, anything else? Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, I am reading the Purport, this 2 lines. He protected, the Parīkṣit Maharaj protected his subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali. At the same time, he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allotting him some particular places. So we know that in modern age, so all the executive heads are demons. They are not favorable to Vedic culture. So I have the 2 options. So one is that to preach them with books and prasadam to the executive heads of the country, number 1. And number 2, that we encourage the young generation, our children who have the inclination, interest, to join the administrative services to become the head of the states. So I have the 2 options. Is there any third option also, Prabhuji?
Option to influence the ruling class, the government. Yeah, we are doing in ISKCON many sort of VIP activities, trying to make them favorable, and it gives some result, as we can see. Yeah, giving prasadam and having them hear the holy name, but we don't want to discriminate. Only VIPs we give prasadam and not to others. No, we want to give prasadam and holy name to everybody, and whoever has a sukriti, whoever is pious enough, will accept it and make further advancement. Whether it's a highly positioned government officer or a street sweeper, we don't really mind. Whether the government is favorable or not, we also should not be too dependent on the government. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very well exemplified that in his dealings with the Maharaj Prataparuja. Although he was a pure devotee, still Lord was declining to meet him for a long time, just to show example to his associates that a devotee or saintly person should not be very eager to obtain material benefits and advantages from a wealthy and influential persons. So we can try to influence them in one way or another, but we should not be desperate after that. We should not be beggars knocking on their doors and bowing down to them and becoming servants of them, because then we will become influenced by them, by their qualities, and they will drag us down instead of us lifting them up. And Srila Prabhupada, he exemplified by his life. He was not going after big political leaders and bowing down to them. No, his disciples would bring those religious and political leaders to him, and then Prabhupada would preach them on the same level. He would not bow down to them and make himself inferior and serve them. No, he would preach to them and give them opportunity to accept higher knowledge. So in this way, yeah, different methods of VIP cultivation are there. Educating our children is also one way, but we should just be careful not to lose our children, that they don't become non-devotees by too much of free association with the non-devotees. They should first be very well established in devotional practices. Okay, I think we have to stop here. Thank you very much. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.